Welcome to Draft Utopia. Chris Ransom, along with Ron Mont and William Yanish. Ron Mont of RJ Media, William Yanish of Under the Bleachers. Today, we're going to discuss the 2026 NHL Draft. I do have the mock draft up, 159 write-ups, 160 players on our draft simulator. I'll leave a link to that in the YouTube description, along with the other cool simulators with the NBA Draft coming up on Tuesday, all that other good stuff. But before I dive into the mock draft, and I know you guys are dying to hear what I have to say, first, we're going to get to some trades. There were 4 this week, I believe, if we're keeping score. I believe
Nice.
there was a Flyers trade on Tuesday. There was an Avs trade on Wednesday. There was another trade on Thursday, which involved San Jose and Buffalo. And then yesterday, there was the Darren Radish trade. I believe those were the 4 that happened this week. If I'm wrong.
No, you're good. You got him.
The Darren Radish trade, I think, was the least significant of the trades. I was thinking William would go over the Avalanche trade for Colton. You'd go over the Flyers trade, and I'd go over the San Jose Buffalo trade. So I'm going to get the least significant of those 4 trades out of the way. The Darren Radish trade to Toronto for a 5th-round pick. I think that's the least significant because Tampa Bay really didn't have him as a projected player in their lineup next year, and Toronto, they gave him an 8-year contract worth about $8.5 million now. I do think that's an overpay, but at the same time, it's like you got to get guys on your team if you're Toronto. You got to do something to improve your reputation after going from the playoffs to a bottom 5 team in the league. And Taylor Radish, I guess, is a starting point. So,
good deal, man. I think there was some. I like the fact that the NHL, well, that teams are making moves now before the draft. You know what I mean? Like I think you're going to see a couple more things go before. I mean, we're down to like what, less than a week now, or just a little over a week now for the draft.
Friday, but I'm expecting the Stars to make a move before Friday to clear up cap space for Roberts.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah, and I think you might see some other teams do some stuff.
Teams want to take on. I think they're more willing to take on Sam Steele's contract. So I'm expecting a Sam Steele trade because the Avs got a 3rd-round pick for Ross Colton. They sent him to Nashville. He had 25 points, I believe, this year. I think Sam Steele had 33 in the regular season, but Colton had 5 in the playoffs, and Steele had none in the playoffs. So I think the biggest reason Nashville and Colorado were able to make that deal was due to the work relationship between former Avs GM Chris McFarland, who went to Nashville, and Colorado Avalanche president of hockey operations Joe Sakic, who made McFarland the Avs GM. I think the work relationship those two have definitely helped Colorado regain some draft capital after trading a guy who was in the final year of his contract, William. I definitely think that played a role in that trade. And now you got a top 75 pick, which is good because Colorado didn't have a pick until 125, and they get a 3rd next year.
Wow.
Week, so
wow. Okay, that was significant for them to be able to get something that much sooner in the draft. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh, for sure, man. And then picking
now
up
you
another
got
one
a chance
next
of
year,
getting a top line player
right?
at 75.
Thinking about the future a little bit.
High odds, not the highest odds. I mean, Dallas only had a 1% chance at Cameron Schmidt, but that was at pick 94. This is about 20 picks earlier at 74. So
Nice.
You're going to get a good player at 74. It's just
yeah.
And you got a
for
2nd and 3rd next year now, and you got 4 7th-round picks, and I think you got 2 or 3 5th-round picks. So you can use that draft capital to move up, which I believe the Avalanche will do in the draft. I believe they will move up.
Yeah, I think so. They will too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly where they'll move up on day 2, but I expect them to move up with all that capital. They're going to try to make something happen.
And and you know how I feel about trades and that kind of stuff. It just excites me to see things like that, and picking up a Swedish goaltender to boot. I mean, why not? Get everything you can. The pick next year, the 3rd-round pick this year. A goaltender. Get a little bit of everything. It's kind of like trades that I make on fantasy football.
Of Denver before he was drafted, he played.
Right.
So it's a local guy. And you bring in someone to push your 24 2nd-round pick, Ilya Nabokov. You bring in another guy to push him. So
yeah, for sure. And that's like some of these places where like the Los Angeles Rams, they played against, the Seattle Seahawks, and then they end up signing Colton
Cracking.
Parkinson, and their tight end, 6'7" dude. And I mean, he's actually been on fire, with the Rams lately. I think he scored, definitely 8 or 9 or 10 touchdowns last year, something like that. And being in that McVay system. So yeah, I definitely understand it. Seeing that goaltender from a local thing, it's like, oh, wait a minute, they got a good guy because they've already watched him so much.
I mean, he's been playing in their backyard for how long now? You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I've got the
I like this move though
on in the background. I feel extremely gypped though because I thought the NHL draft was going to be the Russian hockey draft. It's the Maritime Hockey League draft. I'll say this about New Brunswick: they have the best bridges I've seen since Pittsburgh. They are the version of Pittsburgh with their bridges.
Okay, all right.
Maybe San Francisco if you want to get into the Golden Gate Bridge and some Niners talk, William. But yeah, that's
okay.
All right. I'll say that much about New Brunswick.
Oh, but I will say this though too, Chris. There's some really cool bridges that go over the Mississippi too. Okay, so there's some pretty cool other bridges around too. You know what I mean, right? So there you go.
Exactly.
I like what Colorado did. I think this is a good move. I also agree with you too, Chris, that the relationship that the Nashville had with Sakic helped to facilitate this. You know what I mean? So
because I think Dallas is going to want a third for Sam Steele, but the problem is who's going to be the buyer. The work relationship is a big reason why Colorado was able to get that third for Ross Colton.
Yeah, and I also think too that what happened with Philadelphia with the Toronto Maple Leafs, I think that was one of the first things that the new general manager in Toronto did was reach out to Philadelphia. You know what I mean? Because they coveted Emil Andre. He told me that they've been watching him for 5 years. You know what I mean? That's who they wanted.
Yeah, Emil Andre's good. I think I had him in my late first round or my early second round when I did my 2020 NHL mock draft.
The problem is that in Philadelphia, he was not being utilized. He's got a great first pass. He moves the puck up the ice very well. He plays a good 200-foot game. He's defensive responsible, but he just was not in with Coach Tocchet. And he was not used very often or very much. Played a lot of games down in the AHL, was sitting in the healthy scratch booth for a while, and then started playing a little bit. Then he got some injuries and stuff like that. So, I mean, I think Philadelphia is going to miss him, but they didn't have the same value type on him that, say, the Maple Leafs did. You know what I mean?
And the Maple Leafs need long-term assets on the blue line. They don't. After 2030, all of the defensemen on their current top 6 are UFAs after 2030. So they need long-term assets.
And they also were able to not only get rid of a backup goalie for Toronto with Wall, right, who not a bad goalie, all things considered.
I think both teams traded their backup goalies.
They did, right? So Sam Ersson went, and Emil Andre went, and a third-round pick went for Wall and for Simon Benoit.
Well, right? I had a goalie going in that spot anyway in the mock draft, so Toronto now gets that goalie instead of the Flyers. I still think the Flyers could take someone, but it's not going to be until round 6 or 7. They're not going to pick a goalie in the first 5 rounds.
Well, with them getting Wall, okay, and with the goalies that they selected, 2 goalies last year in the draft, okay, and they've got some other player, another goalie that they got in Russia right now as well.
They got the goalie in Russia who looks decent, the 2023 second or third round pick. Carson Thompson, I do not think he's going to pan out. I think he...
Right, and Kolosov needs more time to play. He needs more development in the AHL. I think Bjarnason does the same thing. He needs that time in the AHL. But I like Wall because he will be able to be that second guy that can come in, because after we saw the play of Sam Harrison just drop off the cliff this year, that you could see that there were certain games that they wanted to play Sam Harrison, but they couldn't because they didn't.
I think the Flyers are going to trade down in round 2 and pick in day 1. Russ suggested the other day that they trade the round 1 pick. I think they're going to pick in round 1. They're going to trade down in round 2 because they do need more draft picks.
Well, and that's the other thing too. They gave up a 3rd round pick in that, so that leaves them now that much even shorter. They got a 1st and a 2nd round,
a 6th
and they got
and a 7th. That's
and
it.
a 6th, and that's it. Right? Okay. And
they're in the same boat as Seattle in terms of limited draft capital.
And I'm sorry, but I'm not buying this from the general manager in Philadelphia. Well, we had extra picks last year. Okay, if you're in a rebuild, what's the major thing that you need to do in a rebuild? Draft capital, so that you can draft more players, so you can build your system. You're trying to tell me that you
arrived to the ball a year early, Daniel Breer. This was not supposed to be a playoff team until 2027. You arrived to the ball a year early.
Exactly. And I think you're making certain mistakes now because you're feeling like you've got a good prospect pool, which I disagree with. Jet Luchenko is not the player.
Great prospect pool.
Right. Jet Luchenko is not the player that you thought he was. You traded up for. He's not that guy. You got a really awesome player in Porter Martone. Okay. You got Mitchkov, who might be a better player this year. Okay. More use, things of that nature. Right. You traded away Bobby Brink. Okay. You're limiting the number of guys that you have. Bump played okay, but see, some of these guys still need time in the AHL. Okay, and you're forcing them to come up early. I am not okay with this trade as far as the 3rd round pick. I would have just said take the player for player, goalie for goalie, and go from there. But whatever it was that Toronto said, or whatever it was that was able to get that 3rd round pick out of Danny Briere. If anything, I think the Flyers are going to trade their 1st round pick to move back and to get maybe a later 1st round or an early 2nd round. I think that's what Philadelphia is going to do with their 1st round pick.
I still think they're going to pick in the 1st round, but I think they're going to move out of round 2 to get more picks between rounds 3, 4, and 5 to get multiple picks.
Or they might do that one too. They might do that one too, but they might get more value if they do the 1st round pick.
That's true. They will get more value if they move 21, but yeah. And the final trade I'm going to bring up before I pull up the mock drafts, the San Jose Buffalo trade. So Buffalo trades their 7th best defenseman to San Jose, Michael Wasserlin, and pick 27 to San Jose for pick 20. I mean, if San Jose, because there's 2 defensemen from Sweden that I think are in running for San Jose, Malte Gustafsson and then William Karlsson. The problem with Karlsson is he's under contract in Sweden until 2028. So if that's the guy you're eyeing, then you could probably get him at 27 if you move back. And you know, this defenseman the Sabres trade away is basically a stopgap until he becomes a UFA. I don't see him as a long-term player. There's a reason Buffalo discarded Wasserlin.
Yeah, but San Jose needs defensemen. So I think they might even actually, I actually see a lot of people, because they're the 2nd pick, right? Overall.
I don't think that was a bad trade by Buffalo, but I would have offered Bowen Byram straight up for pick 20.
That's what I mean, yeah.
Because Bowen Byram's basically came out and said he wants $10 million a year. He was drafted 4th overall by Colorado in 2019, and he was very good on Colorado until they chose to trade him for Casey Middlestat at the 2024 trade deadline. And he's been very good in Buffalo as a 3rd-line defenseman as well, but a bottom-pairing defenseman wanting $10 million a year, you're not one of their 2 number 1 picks like Dahlin or Owen Power. You're not going to get that in Buffalo. So it's like,
nope.
I would have said, here's Bowen Byram. He might be a number 1 defenseman with you guys. Take him and give us 20. And we will make that deal right now. and then Buffalo would have had 2 first-round picks. So that's the only thing I think Buffalo did wrong.
Okay.
Because he's already saying he wants $20 million a year, and you're a third-line defenseman. You've been a third-line defenseman your entire career. You're not getting $10 million a year on the open market. And if you do, it's going to be a really bad team that's desperate for defense with a lot of cap space, like a San Jose or a Chicago. It's going to be a team like that overpays.
Because sometimes you have to overpay for a player just
That's
to try
true.
to get, you know what I mean? But, I remember when TK
I like
came out.
Byram in the 2019 draft, but he hasn't put it together yet, and I don't think he's done enough to warrant $10 million. 7.5,
That's
$8 million, absolutely, but
Okay,
$10 million.
see, that's exactly what I was trying to get to there, Chris. I don't think he's played up to the 10 million yet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm with you on that. 6, 7, 8 million is right around the number for him, I think.
Yep. So those are the trades that happened this week, and yeah, I'm going to pull up the NHL Mock Draft, and I'm going to start going through some of these picks here. I can also pull up the simulator if you guys want to make picks, but I'm guessing you'd prefer to just have me read through the mock draft and get through as many picks as possible, and that's fine.
That sounds like a plan, Stan.
There's just a lot of picks to get. And McKenna, I've had that picture since the first mock draft in August. I haven't changed it because we've known McKenna's going to go number 1 all year, and I think at the Combine they said McKenna is going to go number 1, so it's like, what he did with Medicine Hat, what he did with Penn State this year, I think there are 2 players in this draft that will go straight to the NHL. Gavin McKenna is one of them. Ivor Stenberg is the other one. And
even if he gets drafted by Toronto, you think he's going to start?
I think he goes straight to the NHL. I could be wrong on that, but I think Samuel Erson's going to be
See, I got to be honest with you. I would like to see McKenna play in the AHL, or at least get a little bit of his feet wet there first.
The new rule is going into effect where you can put a player in the AHL if they're 19 next season. That rule is going into effect, but I don't think the rule can be applied on McKenna because he doesn't turn 19 until December, I believe.
Right. So, but he either needs to make his team, Toronto, out of the camp, or he's going to more than likely end up going potentially back to Penn State.
I think what they'll end up doing is they'll, how Tynan Lawrence enrolled in Boston University in January?
Yeah.
I think what could happen here is he plays the beginning of the winter at Penn State, and then Toronto signs him to his entry-level contract in January, and then they give him a little bit of time with the Marlies if he doesn't make it out of camp. Because I don't see him waiting until the end of Penn State's sophomore season to make the jump.
No, I don't either, but I still think, look, it took him a little minute to get adjusted at Penn State. Okay? And once he did, he started to build numbers. But it's like when you're the best player in your league and then you suddenly go to the next league, you're the bottom man on the pole now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right? And so that's kind of what happened with him. He was the top man at Medicine Hat. He went to Penn State. That wasn't the case. Okay? And he had to grow and learn and work at his craft and work his game. Okay? And it didn't come to him right away. And it didn't come until the end of the season.
Yep.
Okay? So I don't know. I don't know if he's going to come out and play right away. I mean, that would be great because, we saw that with Matthew Schaefer, but I just don't know. I don't know if that maturity level is there. I just don't know that with McKenna. I mean, yeah, I watched him play at Penn State all year, right? And I watched him grow. I still think he has a little bit of time to grow yet.
Yeah, and the things, defensive play is really the big area he needs to improve. Offensively, he's a very dominant player. So,
yep.
I think going back to Penn State would help him, but I also think he's too talented to not be on the opening day roster. But we'll see. It comes down to whether Toronto offers him a contract. If they don't, he's probably going back to Penn State.
I mean, I'm pretty sure they're going to offer him a contract.
Yeah.
You know, but see, this is where this whole age and where these guys are eligible to play kind of thing comes in. And Chris, you're absolutely right. He doesn't turn 19 until later in the year. So they're going to have to do something creative with him if he doesn't, you know, make the team opening night.
Yeah. And San Jose, I think Ivar Stenberg's probably the other player that could make the opening roster. And the other two players I think they could consider are Carson Carells and Albert Smits. But I think with the trade they made for Wassel, they're going to go Stenberg at 2. They can get a defenseman at 27. And I think they're heading in the right direction. They're going to have one of the best top 6s in the league. Stenberg, Celebrini, Will Smith on the top line, Chernisov, Misa, and Eklund on your second line. That's going to be a deadly top 6. That's going to be like what Colorado had when they had Mikko Rantanen and they had a really strong core before they felt like they had to trade Rantanen to stay under the cap.
Yeah. Either way, though, I like Stenberg. I mean, I thought he played really, really well this year. I mean, he's one of those guys that he could very well be in that mix with those guys. You know what I mean? And I just really think that he's a little bit more put together. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I think his game is a little bit more matured. Okay, so I like him maybe more so to make San Jose. You know what I mean? So I like that.
I think Stenberg will be on San Jose's opening roster. I know there's a lot of rumors that they're going to pass on him for Chase Reed or Caleb Malhotra. I don't think they will because both of those guys are going to college next year. So it really
but
makes sense.
Okay, but
you were so close to a playoff spot. If you can get a player that can help you out right now, it positions you to potentially contend this.
Yeah, I agree. But see, I don't think San Jose has enough of the pieces yet.
Even if they get in, they would be a first round sweep, maybe win 1 or 2 games. They wouldn't get past the first round if they got in this year. They're better off continuing to build this team up from the ground up and positioning themselves.
Exactly. And man, I tell you what, I like the fact that you mentioned Ravensburg. I can't wait to see him suit up.
Yeah, and Ravensburgen's going to get time to develop with the stopgaps they brought in with Nedeljkovic and Askarov. And then Vancouver's probably going to go Malhotra, who is Manny Malhotra is now Vancouver's head coach, but he was the Abbotsford head coach, and I think Malhotra is going to be the guy they draft, and that's going to give Vancouver. They've got stability. They've got more stability than people think. I know they lost. I know losing Quinn Hughes did put a little bit of a dent in this rebuild, but I think right now they're gonna have a very good top 4 center group next year. If Malhotra comes up at the end of his freshman season or 2028, whenever he comes up, assuming they draft him, they're gonna have Elias Peterson, first-round pick in 2017. Yeah, he's underperformed since he got the 8-year contract, but you'll have him, you'll have Marco Rossi, you'll have Malhotra, and then you'll have last year's first-round pick, Braden Coots, who went 15th overall. That'll be your center 1 through 4. I don't know how long it will take for all 4 of those guys to get to the NHL. I think all 4 could potentially be on the roster by next season. But until all 4 get to that point, I think Vancouver's going to be in a little bit of a rebuild. Mini rebuild. I don't think it's going to be a long-term rebuild like a lot of their fans are saying, oh, we're going to suck until 2030. I think a lot of their fans are being way too pessimistic. They got some good long back.
I was just going to say, man, that Zeev of Bohm is a
Liam was a guy
really good player.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love William in the 2024 draft. He was one of my favorite defensemen in that draft. And you got
Mhm,
him, you got
mhm,
Liam Ogren. You got
mhm.
you got multiple long-term assets in the trade you made with Minnesota for Quinn Hughes. So unless Minnesota can actually extend Hughes, I consider that a win for Vancouver.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that 100%.
And
The
right
only thing
now
that
it's
we talked about,
sent
the only thing that
Minnesota
we
40%
talked about
New
last time
Jersey
was,
for Quinn Hughes.
right, the thing that here's my only little asterisk besides this pick is that, his dad's the coach.
Yeah.
So I just don't know how that's going to look.
Yeah. I think if San Jose goes defense, I think they will pass on Malhotra and take Stenberg, though.
That's what I'm thinking.
If San Jose does pass on Stenberg at 2 to go with a defender, so I still think Keaton Verhoff is the best defender in this draft, but with Chase Reed having the best combine. With Chase Reed having the best combine of the defensemen, and with the Blackhawks actually going to his hometown in Michigan, I think that is a very clear indicator that Reed's the guy. At first, I was thinking it was Verhoff because Blackhawks did go to a lot of college hockey games. They looked very heavily at Verhoff. It still could be Verhoff, but Chase Reed had the best combine according to teams at the combine in Buffalo, and the Blackhawks did go to his hometown to dine with him before the combine, and he had the best combine, the best interview. He was the CHL Player of the Year. His time on ice average was best in the OHL, 30 seconds better than Keyshawn Aitchison. So I think Reed will be the pick at 4, and it's possible Reed goes second or third if Vancouver or San Jose does pick a defenseman.
That's kind of what I was thinking too, there, Chris. If they go defenseman, I think they're taking Chase Reed off the board first.
Yeah. So I think
But if he falls down to that point right there, I absolutely think that Chicago will snatch him up.
Yeah. I think Chicago's already decided whoever falls to 4 between Stenberg, Malhotra, and Reed, that's who we're taking.
Which I don't think you could go wrong with either one.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But yeah, I like Reed there at Chicago. That's a good look.
And then I'll get Williams' input on this in a second. But Carson Carell's the player William mocked the Rangers. I think he's probably going to be a Ranger now because if the player had the second best combine after Chase Reed was Carson Carell's. And they were looking at Carell's, Reed, and Dax and Rudolph. And with Reed gone, I think that leaves Carell's and Rudolph. And I think the Rangers go with Carell's.
I like Carell's. I think he's a really, really good player. He's got good discipline. He plays a good shutdown defensive game. Okay. He went to the Bill Sullivan training camp as well. So he's got really good, like you say there, he's got really good hockey IQ. He sees the ice really well. He has that good first pass up the ice. You know what I mean? So he can clear you out and get you moving. I like him. Man, I tell you what, I had a hard time between him and Dax and Rudolph, right? That's kind of how I feel about those two players.
Yeah. And I think if the Rangers have, because if the reports I read pre-combine are true that they were looking at Chase Reed, Rudolph, and Carell's, I think they will go with Carell's. But they could take Rudolph as well, but I just think they'll take Carell's. And, I
think Carell's is more of a player that can play right away. You know what I mean? Of all those guys, I think he's one of the ones that's a little bit more NHL ready.
Yeah.
Right? Because Rudolph needs to grow a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And having that hockey IQ. Sorry about that. You know where my head's at. But anyway, yeah.
So you want to make goals worth 6 points now. All right. I'm cool with that.
Yeah, with an extra point too. But no, man, you know, I mean, I can definitely see this, and having the and everything, you know, really makes a difference.
And the Rangers are going to have a really good defense next year. They'll have Fox Gavrikov. They'll have Braden Schneider, a 2020 first-round pick. Drew Fortescue, their 2023 third-round pick, made the roster late in the season's now the number 4 defenseman. So if you draft Carrells, both Carrells and E.J. Emery, who was the Rangers' 2024 first-round pick, now a junior at North Dakota, can take Carrells under his wing. So can Verhoff. I think you could have all those guys on the roster by 2027, 2028. And having all those guys with a goalie like Igor Shesterkin, who's top 5 in the league when he's healthy, I think the Rangers were not going to make the playoffs after such a rocky start this year. But if Fox and Shesterkin hadn't got injured, they wouldn't be picking this high. That's a big reason why the Rangers are picking this high. And now they've got a chance to cash in on that opportunity.
Wow.
And Keaton Verhoff falls to Calgary. I mean, Calgary does look like a team that needs help everywhere outside of goalie. They don't have a 50-point player. Their highest paid player, Jonathan Huberdeau, has only posted 25 points before a season-ending injury. And it just feels like Huberdeau has regressed ever since he was traded from Florida to Calgary.
Absolutely. He was one of my favorite players. He was one of my favorite players there, man. That spinorama goal that he was doing.
Yep.
Right? And then he did 2 passes off of that spinorama. And I was like, all right, he was my favorite player there for a little while. But then you're right. Ever since he got traded to Calgary, it was like, dropped right off. Like, what happened?
Yeah.
You know, in the first 10 picks, you got 5 forwards and 5 defensemen.
I agree.
In your draft here, you got 5 defensemen, 5 forwards.
And Verhoff, I think, is the guy who would come off the board at 6 here, because I don't know who the 6th guy is that Calgary's looking at, but I'm thinking it's Verhoff, because I feel like that's the guy they would pick at this spot. Just his size.
Well, it all depends on if San Jose goes defense, and you know what I mean. There's going to be some things going on here, depending on who's going to take who in the first couple. You know what I mean. Until we get to 6, Verhoff might be there. He might not be there. You know what I mean.
Yeah, it depends on what the other teams ahead of Calgary do, but if he's there at 6, he's coming off the board.
I agree.
Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah.
I really like this next pick, Chris. I really like this next pick.
I am very high on Albert Smits too. And one thing I heard before the combine is this guy was as high as 3rd on Seattle's board behind only McKenna and Stenberg. If that's the case, he'll be the pick at 7. But there are a lot of people at the Athletics that said Smits has an attitude. He's too cocky. Kind of reminds people of Shane Wright. He interviewed really poorly at the combine. I think that's smoke. But I do think...
see, now I heard a little bit of different because I have different connections with some of these guys and some of the people that are interviewing these guys. One of the person that I talked to that interviewed him said he interviewed very well. Really liked his game, really feels that his draft stock has absolutely risen and is absolutely deserving of a top 10 pick. So I like the size, 6'3", 205. He's a straight up defenseman. You know what I mean? He's not afraid to get dirty. He's not afraid to take care of business, and he's going to be that quarterback.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I've heard some different things about him of the positive side. Okay. So, I mean, you're always going to have some negative things with everybody. You know what I mean? But he was one of the top guys in some of the drills too.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, when you're able to max out on some of them drills.
Strongman after he gave the Dallas Stars 2 goalies with their first 2 picks. He's the one who reported that Smits had interviewed poorly at the combine. I'm not sure how much I trust him. I'm not trying to throw shade. I know Prongman and Wheeler are considered the Daniel Jeremiah and Dane Brugler of the NHL draft community. I'm aware of that. But
Mhm.
I'm not sure how much I trust their intel after they gave the Stars 2 goalies. The Stars have 5 goalies in their system if you count last year's 5th-round pick Mons Goose. Most teams don't have 5 goalies in their system, so I'm pretty confident they're not going to pick a goalie at 59, but hey, what do I know?
Especially if they have 5 goalies in their system.
Yeah. You got Jake Ottinger, Casey DeSmith, Remy Poirier's been good, Arno Tafise from Germany, I think, is now going to join Texas next year, and then you've got Mons Goose, who had a good +1 draft
Yep.
year. So that's 5 guys.
I don't think you need a goalie.
They don't need a goalie. And if they do take a goalie, it's got to be one of the 3 guys that checks off all 10 boxes. Unless it's Trejbal, Noling, or the guy from Latvia I told William about, I don't think picking a goalie makes sense for them. And I think they'd rather, if you did it, I'd rather you do it in the 5th round versus the 2nd. You need an impact player.
I agree. I do like this pick, though. I really like Smits. I really think he's going to be a good player in the NHL.
I agree with you 100%. I went Daxon Rudolph at 8. Winnipeg just needs bodies in the blue line besides Morrissey and Pionk. That's the biggest reason I picked Winnipeg to regress this year after they won the President's Trophy. I figured they'd still get in as the final wild card, but I think Connor Hellebuyck missing those months.
Well, let me throw some wrench in the works here now. Hellebuyck might be looking to get out. Looking to get out of Winnipeg. Okay, I saw some things and saw some reports on NHL Network this past week about potentially some stirrings of Hellebuyck wanting to get out. So that potentially could be
now the favorite to get Bobrovsky in free agency. So if that's the case, I would not be surprised if Florida traded for Hellebuyck. Traded 9 to get Hellebuyck, which would give Winnipeg 8 and 9.
And at that point, then I could actually see them picking a goalie.
I do think they'll pick a goalie in this draft, but I don't think it'll be
not in the first round, but
I don't think it'll be in the first round, but I do think they'll take another goalie in this draft.
I'm just hoping that Tobias is the first one that goes.
I think
I don't care who he gets. I don't care who he goes to. I just hope he's the first one to go.
Yep.
But Daxon Rudolph, I mean, look, he played really well with the Prince Albert Raiders. He's one of those defensemen that you just need to have on your team. Okay, he's got a great work ethic. He's got good skills. He's got good anticipation. He's one of those puck-moving defensemen, which is what you need. Okay, he's got a little bit of size. He's got a little bit of snarl. Okay, he's not afraid to get his nose dirty and do the things he needs to do. Like this kid, I don't care. Any team that's going to pick him, going to get a good player.
Yep. I agree, and I think you need a defenseman, and Daxon Rudolph's the best player for Winnipeg to draft. You've got good centers, yes. Jonathan Tate is retiring.
Yep.
But I do think you've got some good pieces in place. And I think Rudolph's the right player. Florida, I feel like they're going to get a center. They're going to go best player on the board. I've heard the 2 guys they like are Vigio Bjork from Sweden and Oliver Savanto. Those are the 2 guys they're looking at 9. That's what I heard on a Panthers draft podcast the day after the lottery. So I think they are going to go for one of those 2. And I wouldn't rule out Lawrence here, but I think they're going to pick Bjork. That's just my hunch. I've heard Calgary likes Bjork as well.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was going with that too. I kind of thought I was going to see Calgary take him. I think you're going to see. I think Tynan Lawrence is going to go sooner than where you have him selected. I just do. I just have that feeling.
That's possible. I definitely think that's
Because you have him at 10, right?
Yeah,
You have him going to the Predators.
Yeah. I had him at 12 to the Kings in the midseason, but when I looked at the lottery, I figured that he's going to go somewhere in the top 10, and I think this is where he'll end up. But yeah, I'm looking at number 10. I think it's going to be Tynan Lawrence. Because and then Nashville, if they get, they're going to have a really good. They're going to have a really good 1-2 punch when Ryan O'Reilly becomes a UFA if they don't want to pay Ryan O'Reilly what he wants, because they'll have Brady, Martin, and Lawrence both ready by that point.
I'm also going to say this too. This is going to be a hot take. I think any team that selects Tynan Lawrence, I think he's going to be able to make their team out of camp. Because I think he doesn't have anything else left to prove. He could probably play another year at Boston. You know what I mean? He could look. Everybody can use more development. Everybody can use playing in that next level. So could he play in the AHL? Could you know what I mean? I would like to see him play in the AHL a little bit just to get his feet wet a little bit. But I would not necessarily have a problem seeing him out there skating with the team opening night.
Yep.
Because his hockey IQ and his ability and his leadership skills, I think, are gonna. Plus the fact that he's improved his game, his skating has got better, his shotting's got better. You know what I mean? So I just okay. I'm a little biased. He's a Prospect Watch alumni too. You know.
Fair enough. What's crazy is NBC Sports Philadelphia is saying, "Oh, the Flyers would have to trade 21 and next year's first round pick to get Lawrence." And while I do think that would be a great move for them, that's a lot to give up. And there's a chance that first round pick would be in the top 16 next year if the Flyers take a step back. So
because they still have a pick from Toronto that's going to be a first-round pick that's more than likely going to be moved to next year.
If you can get them to, if the Flyers can make that a conditional pick and it's the lower of the two picks they have next year, I wouldn't have a problem with that. But if the team wants the higher of the two picks, forget it.
Right. That's the perfect scenario. But or even if they don't get Lawrence, if they go somebody else. You know what I mean? If they try to pick somebody else, you know what I mean? You're going to have to make some kind of serious deal to make that happen.
And I don't think that happens unless Lawrence drops to the 14 through 16 range. I don't think the Flyers could get a team to take the lower of the two 2027 firsts and 22 unless he drops to the 14 through 16 range. If he goes at 10, it would probably require all three picks to get him.
Yeah, that's a good point, Chris. That's a good point. If he does drop down that far, then the price is going to go way down.
Yeah. So I think Tynan Lawrence will be the pick here at 10, and I just think he's too good to not be on Nashville. He could be on Nashville by the end of this season. I went with Belchetz at 11. A lot of people are saying, Belchetz, he has some problems. People are putting way too much. He broke his clavicle in March, but unless the medicals are bad, some believe he's got a red flag in lateral agility just looking at the analytics, but this is a big body player, former number 1 pick. I believe the Blues take him at 11, but we'll see. Belchetz might be the guy.
Has multiple first-round picks, too, so that is going to play into whom and what they pick. But I do like that move there for them.
And then I gave the Devils Elton Hermanson. I'm really high on Elton Hermanson. I think he's got great versatility, and he's a player the New Jersey Devils could slot into a second-line right winger down the road.
Could he be the sleeper of the first round?
I think he could be the sleeper. I'm very high on him. I'm higher on him.
You asked me the other day about which players I thought were not getting the most hype or where I thought he's the player I think I would go with.
Yeah.
Right? When you asked me that question, I think he would be the player that would be that person where he's sneaking up on it. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
Like he's just kind of sneaking up on it, and I agree. I think he's going to be a good first-round pick.
Yep. And then the Islanders, I went with a surprise pick here. I went with Nikita Klepov. Some have Klepov at the end of the first round, early second round, but the 97 points, that is hard to pass on. And you get a guy that complements Eklund down the road.
See, that's yep.
So
I like that too. I like this is not a bad move for them. Okay, they're gonna need.
they could go Hemming as well, but I think Klepov provides more offensively. But he played in your league too. That's the other thing you got to consider. Hemming played in Finland and Boston College, so
Right, and then you got Klepov is going to Michigan State. You know what I mean? So all these, this is the thing that I love about what's going on right now in junior hockey is that these guys are now they're playing in their junior leagues, and now they're going to the NCAA. And they're playing for really good teams, really good schools, really good programs. And I really feel that having that college hockey has produced some really good players and is going to continue to.
NIL's going to explode this year. NIL exploded this year. It's going to explode next year. But NHL reached a deal with the NCAA a few weeks ago. Bill Daly suggested that a player in college hockey should not start their freshman season until they turn 19. And I think part of that is because these junior teams, whether they're CHL or USHL teams, are not getting enough time with the players they invest in. And I think that's part of the reason why Daly suggested the players' freshman year should begin not after they're drafted at age 19, whenever they turn 19. That's when their freshman season begins. And
that's what I agree with that 100%, man, because it's that weird time between the ages of 15 and 18, right?
Yeah.
When these guys are, they're 17 years old, they're 5'10". In 2 years, they might be 6'1".
Yep.
I mean, you know what I mean, right? So you need to give those players that extra time there to develop.
Because right now, the way the system's currently set up in the CHL or USHL, you get drafted at 16 unless you're exceptional status or unless you're a Western Hockey League player, and you only get 2 years of development in that route.
Right, till you're 17. And unless you continue to play, then you're the under 18. But for the most part, you're at that point, 17, you're either drafted by the NHL, right, and or soon to be committed to a hockey team because you're just about ready to get out of high school.
Yeah. And it's a disadvantage for the other teams. That's why I'm thinking we're going to see a changing of the guard, and we're probably going to see because I think the WHL is the only draft where they let the players go into the league at age 15. I think we will see the OHL and QMJHL adapt that, and they'll move the exceptional status up to 14 because McKenna was 14 when he was an exceptional status player. So I think we will see those two changes go into effect, but I also think we'll see players stay on their junior teams until they're 19 and then go to college. And that's supposed to take effect in 2027, 2028. So it won't affect the 27 class. It will affect the 2028 draft class, though. That rule. So because that ruling that Daly proposed is going to go into effect in the 27-28 season. It's not going to go into effect this season. So, so we'll still see Landon do in the NCAA. But yeah, Columbus, I think they're going to go Oscar Hemming. Hemming just feels like the player that's the best fit for them. And he's going to go to Boston. He had a good impact at Boston University. So I think he's the guy they pick here. 6'4", 200. It's hard to ignore that size. His hockey sense is best quality. He's Emil Hemming's younger brother. I had Emil Hemming at 16. I don't think Oscar's as good as Emil, but I do think Oscar's going to get drafted higher because he's just generated more traction.
That's possible. Yeah, I'm with you. I like that.
And then the Blues, I gave them Ryan Lynn. There's a lot of people that are saying, oh, Ryan Lynn, he's going to fall to 20. Now, I don't think he's going to fall to 20. I mean, there were only 3 defensemen that generated 50 points at the age of 16 in the WHL. One of those guys was Scott Niedermayer. The other 2 were Ryan Lynn and Landon DuPont, the number 1 pick, projected number 1 pick in next year's draft. So,
here's the thing though, Chris. 5'11", 172 pounds for defenseman. For defenseman, that's and especially if you want to be considered elite defenseman, man, that's
that depends on if he has little man syndrome or not. You know.
Well, most of them do. You know what I mean?
I'd have to interview him, and I could tell you within the first few minutes of that interview. Let me tell you, man.
But see, here's the other thing, though, too, right? Because 5'11" is that weird tweener height. Because at 5'11", you put skates on, you're 6 foot. Okay? So you could still be 5'11" and still be pretty effective, right? But I think you need a little bit more snot behind you. More than 170
I think he's got to get
pounds.
up to 180 or 190. But here's the thing.
Yeah.
He's going to go to Denver, and he's going to play on the Denver Pioneers next season. So
that's not a bad deal.
Great place to go for him to develop. And I think that's where we will see him. I mean, he gained 20 pounds of muscle since being drafted. So I do like his confidence, and we'll see what happens. But Capitals, I went with a surprise player here. I went with Igor Shilov from the Victoriaville Tigres. That's Tigers in French, by the way, William.
I like it.
82 points, so 50 assists. He's going to go to Penn State this fall. I think if McKenna comes back, I think Penn State could be a threat to go all the way. If Michigan gets Landon DuPont, they could be a threat. And I'm looking at North Dakota. I think those 3 teams could all be Frozen Four candidates next year, depending on what happens.
Well, you're more than likely going to get some guys returning back from Penn State. You're going to lose a couple guys, but
they're getting Jackson Cover as well, and they're getting another left winger, Jackson Cover from the London Knights.
And here's the other thing too that's really exciting for me at Penn State is 2027 commit Alexander Karmanoff. Woo!
7-foot defenseman. He's something else.
Yeah, baby. All right, but I like this pick here for Washington. I think this is a good move for them.
And then the LA Kings,
because they're getting older there.
I mean, things have got to get a replacement.
That's a good move.
I'm going Ilya Morozov. I think that's a good replacement. You move Byfield up to the top line with Kopitar retiring, and Ilya Morozov feels like a player that you can reload this roster with, and he is a player I think would be a really good fit for the Kings.
I like him too. He played really well with Tri-City Americans. He's got the size. He's got the tools. You know what I mean? It's just, can he put the points up? You know, he's really young.
Point total, I agree.
Right. He's really young, but he needs to be able to put up some points if he wants to be considered. You know what I'm saying? But for the most part, I think he's got all the tools, man.
Yep. And then the Capitals, Maddox Deganey. I went with Maddox Deganey. I heard that's a player Washington likes. And number 2, he made the transition from center to right winger this past season. So I think the Capitals, if they get Deganey after getting Shilov, I think they would probably move Deganey to right wing.
Well, it gives them some versatility, and especially with that size, 6'4", 196 pounds, you know what I mean? And that gives them that little bit of versatility where if he doesn't necessarily want to play winger, he could play center. If he doesn't want to play center, he can play winger. And depending on what Shilov wants to do, you understand.
Yep. Number 1 pick in the QMJHL draft. I gave Utah Novotnoy. I feel like Utah's got some good stability, and they can wait to develop Novotnoy. Novotnoy can play either winger role. He had 65 points, 6'1", 204, good size. And he's a player you can develop long-term. Clayton Keller is a 2028 UFA. I'm guessing Novotnoy would arrive in the NHL he would probably arrive in the NHL in 28 if Keller didn't get extended. If Utah extends Keller, which I believe they will if they can, he'll spend a year in the AHL and then compete for a spot on Utah in 2029. So,
which all in all, still not that bad.
yeah. Sabres, I gave them Liam Ruck. I had him at 27. I'm moving Ruck up to 20. The Ruck twins both dominated this past season. And I just think you cannot pass on this player at 20 if you're the Sabres. I mean, especially if Alex Tuck leaves and he's already decided he's going to test the open market. If he decides he's testing the open market, I'm taking Liam Ruck, and I'm not hesitating to pull the trigger there.
No, I'm not either. I like, the amount of points that he was able to put up. 25 goals is nothing to sneeze at. You know what I mean? The thing that I really like.
That was with McKenna. Without McKenna, he had 45, nearly doubled his goal total. So,
but I like the plus 17.
That is, yeah. That plus 17.
When you have a center or a winger that is a plus like that, yeah, that's a good player that knows how to put the puck in the net and plays defensive responsible.
Exactly. 16 power play goals this year, 10-game winners, really good player. I still have Hurlbear going to your Flyers, Ron. You don't believe he'll be on the board at this spot, but
as a center he could be, but I don't know, man. I think this is kind of a pipe dream for Philadelphia. I just don't think that they're going to be able to fall to somebody like this. I think he's going to be gone. I really do. I think he's going to be gone.
But yeah, this is a player that is really good, and I think
because we need centers. Philadelphia needs a center bad, like a number one center, and you're not going to be able to necessarily. The problem is that they need a 1C now. They don't need a 1C for 27 or 28. They need a 1C now.
Yeah.
So could they take him? Would this be a good pick for them? Yeah. I would love this pick for them, right? But I just don't know how real it's going to be, how available he'll be. But I would take this pick all day long.
All four Philadelphia centers are under contract till 2030, but I do think we will see someone get moved within the next year or two.
Well, Zegras, I don't know if he says he's a center. He wants to play center, but
RFA. You've got Dvorak, who got some first-line reps at center in the 2026 Stanley Cup playoffs on the second line. You've got Luchanko was on the third line. I think that was due to injuries. And then you've got Couturier on the fourth line. So
Luchanko didn't play this year. We had Cates up the middle, and
I do think Luchanko's going to be in third-line center, but he's not going to be a top-line guy.
I don't even think he's going to be a third-line center. I really don't. I just don't see that. I have not seen good enough production from him in the lower levels, okay, when he's been given the chance. When he played, not this past year, but the season before, when he was on the AHL Phantoms, he was getting some good chemistry with Anthony Richard, but he wasn't lighting it up. You know what I mean? Like when you get a player like that you trade up for, he needs to be lighting it up, and he's just not. Okay. Yeah. Does he have leadership? Yes. Does he have speed? Yes. But I need production, and I need points. I need goals. I need assists. I need, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And hot take, I think Philadelphia still might make some moves. Either at the draft, they might make a move. And I think one of the moves potentially could be TK.
If Hurlbear is there, I think they'll pick him. If he's not, I wouldn't be shocked if they moved out. It just depends on who's there when they're picking.
Right. So we'll see. I really, they might move out. We'll see. Oh, that's just not right, Chris. How dare you do that to me, man?
What, trade ball to the Penguins?
Yeah. What are you doing, man?
They need a goalie. I hope they ignore me. I hope they ignore me.
Yes, please ignore him.
I know a lot of the mock drafts have gave the Penguins Hurlbear. I don't think Hurlbear will make it to 22. And right now, they just don't have. They've got Shilyovs, they've got Blomqvist, who's an RFA, and Skinner's a UFA. And I think Trejball's. I think he did enough at the Mario Lemieux Sports Complex, the USHL Fall Classic, the 33 save shutout back in September when he had a 6th round grade. But I knew when I saw him at that moment in person, I told you about him, I told Anthony about him. I said this is going to be the first goalie drafted, and I think he's going to get picked in the 1st round at this spot.
I got to see him play at the 2026 All-American game, and he had a shutout. 30 shots in the first period and a half for that game.
Yeah.
So an all-star game, and you shut them down, literally. And then watching him play at Youngstown, holy moly. And this kid's got all the tools, okay? So really like this guy.
I would not shut up about Fowler for years. I saw him get a 30-save performance against Michael Celebrini. He was stopping everything Celebrini was firing his way when Celebrini was on the Chicago Steel. So that's how. So that's how I knew.
Going to Pittsburgh. Oh man.
I feel like Pittsburgh, Florida, and Edmonton are the 3 teams that are most likely to take a goalie in the first 2 rounds of this draft. I would go with that too, because I know Pittsburgh needs a goalie. I just don't know if they're going to do it in the 1st round like they did with Mr. Flower. Yeah.
Right? They took him in the 1st round. Oh, gosh, I can't think of his name now. The 1st round goalie they picked, who just retired here not too long ago. Played for Vegas, I can't think of his name.
That was Fleury.
Yeah.
Fleury.
Yes, that's it. Right. So they picked him in the 1st round.
1st overall, I believe, too. But
yeah. So could they be picking a goaltender in the 1st round this draft? Ooh, maybe.
I think they feel. I feel like they are gonna, and Trejball's going to UMass. So, I mean, I think the goals on the board are stopgaps, and basically Trejball would develop at UMass, and he'd be ready for the Penguins by 2030. He'd be that bright spot.
I think he'll be sooner. Chris.
Okay, that's fair.
I think he'll be 29. He might even be a 28, 29 guy, because he needs to play a little bit of college, and then I think he's gonna, you know what I mean, right?
I mean, remember, Jacob Fowler signed with Montreal after his 2nd season at Boston College, so we could see a similar trajectory with Trejball.
That's kind of what I'm thinking. That's exactly what I'm thinking there, Chris.
Bruins, I went Malte Gustav. I had him at San Jose, but they traded pick 20 away. But I think they take Gustafsson, 6'4", 201. I know his SHL numbers aren't great, but his tape is really good, and I think...
Yeah, he is. Oh, my gosh. Man, is he a really good defenseman? Like, holy moly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I would say he's probably one of the... He reminds me a lot of Aitchison from last year, where there's not a lot of offense. It's potentially there, but he's all about defense. Yeah,
just a very smart, fundamentally sound player. And then I gave Vancouver Rubrook, because Vancouver does need a 4th line left outside of center. That's probably their biggest immediate need, and I feel like that's a player they can get at this spot in the 1st round as that 2nd building block, along with Malhotra. And
wow,
I know,
riddle me this, guys.
Rubrick was a top 5 pick in the preseason, but he fell in the draft. Some have him dropping the 2nd round, but he did still... he went from 87 points to 58 points, but he had 10 power play goals, 6 game-winning goals, and he was a full-time left winger this year. So he was a center his rookie year. He was a full-time left winger this year.
Riddle me this once. Let me just play a little bit here on the field for a second. What if, hypothetically, Winnipeg wants to trade Connor Hellebuck, and supposing that Pittsburgh is the landing spot for Hellebuck.
That if that happened, they would Winnipeg would probably get pick 22, and they could get Trade Ball. It just depends on what they're able to get back.
So that's kind of where I'm thinking about that. Okay, if Hellebuck wants out, okay, and let's face it, how many guys do you think would be lined up to get one more year of Malkin and Crosby and that team, right? Because let's face it, if they had better goaltending, they would have been a little bit better against Philadelphia in the playoffs.
Yep.
But I like this here for Vancouver. Rubruck. The Ice Dogs.
Yeah.
He's got some good shooting, man. This guy knows how to put the puck in. Holy moly.
Yep. And then the other guy I went with is Pierce Mugwai. I am a lot higher on him on the consensus. I know he's undersized, 5'10", 153. He's dominated the last 2 seasons in the OHL. He went from 52 to 75 points this season. He's going to Penn State. And if McKenna goes straight to the NHL, he might be replacing McKenna right out of the gate. If McKenna comes back and mentors him, he could be even deadlier next season with multiple years in college. So I love what he does offensively. I mean, I was high on Alex DeBrincat I had a first round grade on Alex DeBrincat when he was drafted. So my track.
Are you saying DeBrincat?
DeBrincat, yes.
Okay.
My track record with smaller players is pretty good. So Maguire is a player I'm higher on than the consensus. We'll see how he develops at Penn State.
Yeah, that's a good move too. I really see, man, Penn State ever since they've kind of made that little Frozen Four playoff run, man, Penn State has been the place to go.
Okay, we've got the screen is the fourth person. I thought Joey was here. No, there's a fourth person. But no, it's all right. I told Joey that if William had a day off last week, he could have a day off too. I don't know if he chose to elect this as his day off, but whatever. I'm good either way. It's not fair to do that. It's not fair to play favorites like that. Right. With my teammates. It's not. It's not. So
no comment.
It's not right to do that. It's not ethical to do that. It's not fair to give one teammate a bye week and the other not that option. So, got to give everyone equal treatment. But yeah, Marcus.
That's right.
Love it, man. Love it.
Marcus Ruck's the twin of Liam Ruck. I think the Rangers take him. They've needed that. I know they've got Zibanejad. I feel like they could upgrade over him. I think Marcus Ruck's the one guy in this draft that is an upgrade over him. If they can't get him, they're pretty much stuck with that stopgap first line center who's
because the loss of Panarin,
who's going to put you over the top.
Now the loss of Panarin was pretty big for them.
Yeah, it was.
Okay, but it did get them. They had 2 picks now in the first round.
No, I think they got a second or third round pick from the LA Kings.
Okay.
But yeah, William Hawkinson. I know he's going to be in the AHL until 2028, but I think Hawkinson is a player that Hawkinson just feels like a ideal fit. So I think Hawkinson makes a lot of sense here.
Although he's got good size, he's a development guy. He's probably at least 2-3 years away at best.
I agree.
You know what I mean? And see, that's kind of the thing about some of these players. You're going to get guys that are going to be that good that'll be able to make the team right out of camp, and then there's most of these guys
I think
not
could
so
make
much.
the team. The problem is he's under contract with Luleila until 2028. So,
and that's the other thing too, right?
Yeah.
And I think you need at least maybe even a year or maybe not quite a year, maybe 9 months, whatever, an off season or something, to get used to the smaller ice.
Yeah.
When you come over from Europe and you're playing on that big ice, and then you come over here to North America, now the ice is smaller, and it's a faster game.
Yep. And Montreal, I gave them Savanto. Savanto just feels like a player that, Philippe Denault is in the final year of his contract. I think the fourth line center, and they'll have Michael Hage. Michael Hage can be a replacement to Denault, and then I think Savanto could replace Veleno, because his contract in Finland is up after next season.
I'll tell you what, man, you look out for this team, okay? This team is a mover and a groover, okay?
I have Montreal.
They
Spoiler alert, they are in my 2020. Right now, I have Montreal and Dallas in my projected 2027 Cup final at the moment.
Wow.
But at this point, I do have Montreal, because I think everyone else in the East is suffering a little bit of turnover. There's hardly any turnover in Montreal. And this young team, they're hungry. I think they're going to take that next step.
And you got to put it together, man, with a goaltending tandem that they got up there.
Yeah.
And Dovish and Fowler. I mean, Fowler was the consensus number one goalie last year, right? And I got to be honest with you, man. The future is looking bright up there in Montreal Canadien.
Yeah.
Canadien.
Canadien, yeah.
Yep.
My worst French accent ever.
Right.
And then the Blues with that third first round pick. He's a guy
this is the player that I think that Philadelphia is going to end up with.
Yeah. He's decent, but I also felt like I was not high on him when I watched his tape in the fall, but he did win the Emile Bouchard trophy in his +1 year since J.J. Degenalt. He was the first player to do that. And J.J. had a very long career with the Flyers. He also won a Stanley Cup with Montreal in the early part of his career.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
That's a pretty good player comp, I think. But he's also that he did grow, but he's also at that 5'11", and man, does he need to put on some weight.
He does need to put on some muscle. You were correct on that. Juho Pipparainen to Tappara. I went with him because, Albert Smith's probably the top defenseman in Finland, not named Albert Smiths. Tried to handle the task as well as possible. I aim to lead by my own actions. I'm not the loudest guy in the room. I try to set an example and show the way. That's basically what Pipparainen said to the media after he was voted captain of Finland at a tournament. So the leadership traits are already there, and I think this is a
good pick for them.
Yeah,
this is a really good pick for them because they need that leadership.
They do.
You know what I mean? You got to have some of that. You got it.
Yeah, 6'3",
It's okay if it comes from the blue line. It's okay if it comes from the blue line. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But yeah, you do need that leadership, good size, good leadership, and Calgary needs that. Their leading point scorer had 50 points, and I think their highest paid player only had 25 points. Carolina, I went with a surprise pick. Tommy Blale was a guy a lot of people mentioned as a dark horse to move into round one on the Prospect Dawn group chat on X. I kind of agree with that assessment. The person in that group who made that claim, I kind of agree with that. Blale.
Yeah, I read that too.
Points as a rookie. He's going to go to Michigan State. So I think.
Plus, that's a good school for him to go to. Plus, plus 58.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously.
Yeah. He dominated. He was the QB on the power play for Des Noir this past season.
Yeah, man, I like this. I like this guy here too. I'm pretty high on him as well. He
He was
might
the
go
first
sooner.
player since Kulikov to win both QMJHL Player of the Year and Rookie of the Year in the same season. So
I agree.
a lot. And my sleeper to crack round 1, a lot of people have this guy in round 3, round 4, but my sleeper to crack round 1 is Lavar Gashilov. This center
Ooh.
blew me away on tape, and I think he's a player that, you know, most scouting services have him around pick 72. I think most draft simulators, the Hockey Mock and Prospect On, I think they both have him in the 4th round, but this guy, 6'2", 170, he had 40 points. He won 69% of his faceoffs in his +1 season. And then this year, he won 72% of his faceoffs in the MHL. And so I think he's the best. He might be the best center at winning faceoffs in the entire draft. And honestly, I feel like this is a guy Ottawa's going to roll the dice on here. And he is my number 1 Russian in this entire draft. I know there's other Russian players that are higher in the consensus rankings, but Gashilov is somebody I would pound the table for in the late 1st round. So he ended up.
I'm with you on that too. And if Philadelphia ends up trading back, he might be the guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because they need somebody that can win faceoffs.
Yeah.
Because that has been one of their Achilles' heels this whole season. Is
he went from 40 to 69 points, kept his penalty minutes to under 20 or less, even though it increased from 12 to 20. And yeah, I think he is a dark horse. I think he's a dark horse to crack the 1st round. So
I like it. I like it.
All right.
Well, listen, guys, it's been a real slice. Unfortunately, though, I got to duck out. Was able to do the 1st round. Thank you very much, Chris, for having me on. Thank you, William. Appreciate it, my man.
Yep.
Listen,
Continue, man.
This draft is going to be an amazing draft. You're going to see some very, very talented young men go. As far as I'm concerned, I think this draft has just as much, if not more, talent than last year's draft. And I'm anticipating 28 or 27's draft and 28's draft to be just as loaded, not just with centermen, but wingers and defensemen and goalies.
Yep.
Okay, I don't necessarily see this as a heavy center draft or a heavy winger draft or a heavy defenseman draft or anything like that. I just see it as a stacked draft, meaning there's all kinds of picks for all kinds of positions.
Yep, and next year's draft, Carter Essler, Eric too, the 2 WHL goalies, they're ranked higher than any goalie in this year's draft. I'm wondering if that will be the reason why nobody takes a goalie in the 1st round.
Possible.
Hey,
I like Trejbal, though. I would take him in the 1st round.
I do too. Yeah. What's up, man?
There's a question in the chat talking about Florida and their history of being successful with players out of Finland. He says, can you see them drafting Oliver Savanto at number 9?
Savanto, I've got Vigio Bjork if he's there, but I think if Bjork goes at 6, I do think they take Savanto. I agree with that 100%. Plan if I agree with that 100%. If Bjork goes, the only team I could see taking Bjork ahead of Florida is Calgary at 6, and if Bjork goes to Calgary at 6, I think Florida does pick Savanto at 9.
Yep, I agree. I agree with that 100%. And that their penchant for doing that has really helped them. I mean, Florida's won 2 cups. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And let's face it, it's a copycat league, right? So not everybody's going to be able to copy what Carolina's been able to do, but as far as how they were able to get to where they were, but more of a copy league is more of like what Florida's done, Tampa Bay's done, Colorado's done. You know what I mean? So be sure for that. Thank you all very much for letting me be here on the show. I really appreciate it. Please follow me at RJ_media. Check out my YouTube channel. We do Under the Bleachers with William and Chris. That'll be starting back up here in August. Make sure that you get signed up at draftutopia.com so you can catch all the latest and greatest on the mock drafts. And be sure to check out our show when we do the draft live right here, folks.
On Friday, we're going to have a lot of shows this week. Sports Head Radio Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, NBA Draft at 8 p.m. Eastern. Friday, I NHL draft with Ron, and yes, I get an off day.
An off day.
Last 2 years, I did not get an off day between the NBA draft and the NHL draft. The Thursday after the NBA draft is technically an off day. That's a day.
An off day.
I'm probably be working, finishing up the mock draft, finishing up the write-up, setting up rounds 1 through 7. I'll be working, but at the same time, I won't have to live stream the draft. That's what I mean when I say it's an off day. I won't have to live stream the draft on the Thursday. I'm not taking work off, Ron.
Okay. All right. I didn't think so, but like I said, thanks, guys, man. We'll catch you all on the next one. Have a good one.
Bye.
And then next Saturday will be rounds 2 through 7 of the NHL draft. So, yeah, that was fun. We'll see what the Avs get next Saturday. We'll see what my Stars get next Saturday. I'll go through rounds 2 through 7. I know William's probably only going to – I told William if he had other things to do, he could hop off at noon. I know he's going to hold me to that, so let's try to get through as many picks as possible between now and noon, and then I'll read the rest of the picks and sign off whenever. But, yeah, Mathis Preston, I think Vancouver takes him at 33. That is a player that I could see. A lot of people have him in the first round, but he just didn't do enough to crack my first round. 5'11", 168. He was a third-line winger last in his +1 year. This year, he kind of regressed slightly, 45 points, 44 points. I like him in round 2, but I don't know how I feel about him in round 1. And with Cameron Schmidt there, I think they had him. Cameron Schmidt's going to be on Victoria next year. But, yeah, they traded him to the Thunderbirds, and then the Royals picked him up. But, yes, Nordmark's going to be the Blackhawks pick here. I mean, he played with Frondell, last year's first-round pick. So, logistically, I think he's the option there. I gave Calgary Jackson cover. He's going to Penn State. Calgary just needs guys that can step up and play. Their top point scorer at 50 points, and Alexander Command, who some have going in the first round, was the next guy that came off the board. Adam Nemec is the younger brother of Simon Nemec, who went second overall to the Devils. The Blackhawks really need to get a first-line winger for Bedard through the draft, and I don't know if Nemec is the guy, but them losing out on Stenberg and Gavin McKenna really does hurt them, because either of those guys could have elevated Chicago to a playoff team. There will be a guy in next year's draft they can get that will elevate them, but they're going to have to continue to rely on building up their prospect pool and hoping to find a top-line winger outside the first round. That's not going to be easy, but that's what they're going to have to do for now. The Kraken, I'm double-dipping at defense. Jakub Vanecek from Tri-City. He's gonna be back next year, not taking the NCAA route. Wyatt Cullen, he is the son of former Carolina Hurricanes and Penguins Stanley Cup winner Matt Cullen. I think some have Wyatt in the top 10, William. I like Wyatt, but I don't like him that much. But I do think he'll go in the second round, and if he doesn't go in the second round, he'll go in the late first. But
for sure,
and it's possible the Penguins take Trage Ball here and Cullen at 22, with Matt Cullen playing on the Penguins during their last 2 Stanley Cup teams in 2016 and 2017. So, I mean, this guy, he started out at 5'8", 146. He's now 6'1", 180, and he wasn't even on the USNTDP roster at the beginning of the year. Then he gets promoted to team captain of the under-18 team by the end of the season. Such a quick turnaround. That's why he has the traits you covet, but his floor second-line left winger on an AHL team, ceiling's first-line winger on an NHL team. He feels like a boomer bust pick. Injury history, he was injured multiple times in the season. I think those injuries are going to be why he falls to the second round, but there are a lot of people putting him in the top 10, so we'll see where he ends up. And then Rogowski, big son of a gun, 6'7", 236, 42 points, 272 face-off wins, and like I said, he's a big son of a gun. He's going to Michigan State this fall, and yeah, he'll have to compete with Shamar Moses, last year's 5th-round pick by Florida that Ron really liked, and I really liked Shamar Moses as well. But I mean, you can't. Some have Rogowski as high as 16th overall, and Florida does need another winger in their prospect pool. So I don't think you can pass on Rogowski here because Rogowski, some think he's a center. I think he's a right winger. Right winger is his natural position, but he can play all three forward roles. So it's possible that they move him to center. I gave the Canucks Samu Alulati Pelicans 6'2", 215 pounds games on the Lahti under 20 team. He also had 4 points as an alternate captain for Finland under Juhu Pekka-Rainen. And I think Lulari, he's going to be playing on the blue line with Landon Nyes and goalie Tobias Trejbal next year. I think that's a really good fit for him. Nashville goes Igor Barbanov. Barbanov had a mind-boggling 91 points and 481 face-off wins as the first-line center on the Saginaw Spirit. Came in and replaced Michael Misa, last year's second overall pick in Saginaw. And I think he's a guy who he's headed to UMass as well with Halulari, Landon Nyes, Trejbal. UMass putting together a really good recruiting class. Mons Gudmundsson from Farjestad, 6'2", 188, 25 points. He is a player that I think will end up going very early. And then his teammate Samuel Eriksson's another guy I like, 6'5", 210. I know the goals offense wasn't there, but with his size, his defensive ability is why I am higher on him than the consensus, even though he didn't get a combine invite. And then another winger for Chicago to stash and develop, Zach Wooten. He was the line one guy on the Green Bay Gamblers, 62 points, 6'2", 209 pounds. He's going to go to Wisconsin and play for the Badgers. So the Blackhawks will not have to rush Wooten or whoever drafts Zach Wooten next week, because he's a third round guy. Whoever takes him next week, he's going to get picked next Saturday. Whoever takes him is going to be in a really good position. Luke Shire, 6'3", 195. I've got the Kings getting him, getting a defenseman. They own Columbus's pick. And then the Red Wings, they finally pick in round 2. They don't pick in round 1. Matthias Vanninen's a player I really like. This guy is 5'10", 177, but he had a ridiculous 87 points this past year. He also led all players with 8 goals during the Memorial Cup. So I think he's a player that will be picked very early in the second round, middle of the second round, but yeah. A lot of people have him in round 3 or round 4. I don't think he'll last that long with all the attention he generated at the Memorial Cup and in the WHL playoffs. Brady Noling, this is Ron's favorite goalie, not named Trejbal, and this is I was torn between him and Borichev, but I went with Noling because he checked off more boxes. I know the save percentage in the USHL isn't good, but he had 42 saves and a 4-2 win over the CHL and the USA versus CHL prospects game, and he's going to Boston University. That's where Jake Ottinger played college. If his GAA and save percentage improve at Boston U, he could be a really good starting goalie down the road. There are some people that have Noling in the 4th round due to the GAA and save percentage being so high, but just based on the tape, I think he's the second best goalie. But I can understand why teams feel that way about him. Brett Lisk to the LA Kings. I went with Lisk because he took Landon DuPont under his wing when DuPont first got to the Silvertips after he was drafted in the 24 WHL draft. I always look for the veteran guys that take the younger players under their wing. That is a bonus for me. And yeah, Lisk took DuPont under his wing when he first got to the Silvertips. So, you know, he's a guy that I think could very easily get picked in the second round. Some have Lisk in the 3rd, 4th round, but I think him taking DuPont under his wing, I really like him. Chase Harrington was described as the toughest player to play against at the NHL Combine. He falls to the Anaheim Ducks, who don't have a first-round pick. So, I mean, he had 50 points in his +1 year. This season, he had 57 points. Moderate improvement, but he's someone you can stash and develop. Calgary goes Beckett Hamilton. He can play all 3 forward roles. 330 face-off wins, 261 shots on goal. But that 5'11", 173-pound size, it is something he's going to have to work on. Edmonton, they need a goalie in the worst way possible. Tristan Jarry is their starting goalie, but they don't have a backup to Jarry. And, Connor McDavid, he's going to be UFA in 2028. If they don't do something to turn this team around, they're going to have to reload. They fired their coach after losing in the first round of the playoffs after making 2 consecutive Stanley Cups. Boruchev, I really like him, but he's got to improve his ability to read the puck by tracking the puck. And I went with Jaden Kurtz here to the Flyers. Top high school skater in this draft, 6'3", 190. He played with Chicago. He's going to play at Wisconsin in 2027. He was a junior in high school, but because he turned 18 before September 15th, he's eligible for this draft despite being a junior in high school. Miles Brosnan, also another high school defenseman who played with Sioux City. I'm really high on Brosnan. I think he's gonna split his time between Dexter, Southfield, and Sioux City during his senior year, and then he's going to go to Harvard next year. Anyone who can get into Harvard as a hockey player, or anyone who can get into Harvard in general, is just really smart. But yeah, Runso. I think Runso is another guy to look at in this late second round.
Yeah, that's always something that I'm looking at is, what school they went to. And if it's an Ivy League school or even close to that, like with Boston College, and some of the places, it just really shows their IQ. It was like Michael Pratt a few years ago in the NFL, but he kind of had a cocky attitude, which kind of made people not want to follow him. But, I'm just saying that how smart these
because I think Northeastern made the Frozen Four in women's hockey, and their best player fell to the third round of the PWHL draft, which I watched on Thursday. And then Yale had like 3 or 4 players drafted in the 6th round draft for women's hockey. I don't think Yale has any prospects in the NHL. They had 3 or 4 women drafted in the PWHL. And Jerome McGinley's daughter was the captain at Brown for 2 years in a row, and she fell to the 2nd round. And Jerome McGinley, that hockey family, one of the best players of probably Calgary's best player in modern day history. I don't know if all-time best player, but in modern era, I would argue he was their best all-time player. Landon Nyes, I had him at 20. I had Landon Nyes in the first round at the beginning of the year. I know he had a very underwhelming season, only 3 points in 35 games, but he was incredible in the USHL the year before. And Massachusetts Minutemen head coach called Landon Nyes the second best skater among every defenseman he ever coached. The only defenseman that was a better skater than him was Cale Makar, who's Colorado's current #1 defenseman. So that's a heck of an endorsement. Because Makar's currently considered the best defenseman in the NHL. So if the Minutemen coach is saying Landon Nyes is a better skater than any defenseman he's coached outside of Makar, that's a heck of an endorsement. I think the Bruins roll the dice on Landon Nyes in the 2nd round. I know there's a lot of mocks that have him dropping to round 3, round 4. I don't see him dropping that far, but we'll see. Ethan McKenzie's the top overager in this draft. Most players are 18 when they get drafted, but Ethan McKenzie's probably the top 19-year-old in the draft, and he's enrolling at North Dakota this fall. So, yeah. The Tampa Bay Lightning, Zachary Lansard of the Regina Pats. I think he's really stepped up this year, 56 points. We would have liked to see him do a little bit more, but, Lansard, he is a player. I think he's going to North. He might be going to North Dakota. I don't know. That's Caleb Heil, last year's 7th round pick. But yeah, Lansard is a guy on my radar. I'm kind of curious to see where he ends up. I went with Cooper Williams for Dallas. Cooper Williams is a player. I had a 1st round grade on Cooper Williams in the fall. The reason why I loved his speed. He shows flashes of Bedard and flashes of McKinnon, Colorado's best center, in his rookie WHL season. I don't think he'll be as good as those two, but he showed similar traits on tape, and the traits are what make him stand out. And yeah, he matched his 57 points from his rookie year. 387 face-off wins this year. Had 336 his rookie year. Really good, really consistent in the face-off department, and he's going to North Dakota in 2027. So long-term center for Dallas to develop. He might be on the roster by the time Matt Duchene's contract expires, but he could also be eased into the lineup. Zach Olson, a teammate of Cooper Williams, goes to Toronto. Another Ivy Leaguer comes off the board here. Cooper Cleaves, he was a freshman at Dartmouth, had 10 points at Dartmouth as a true freshman, number 1 defenseman on Dartmouth, top line player. So Montreal gets him and stashes him in their prospect pool. Verti Svensk goes to San Jose. He was a number 1 defenseman on his team in Finland, so I think Svensk, 6'1", 168. He's got to add more muscle, William, but we'll see what he does. The 1 point in 18 games against men's a little bit concerning, but it's hard to score. It's hard to defend effectively and score on men when you're 168. I think if he hits the weight room, he'll be fine. He played 2 games against men in the playoffs, so he's got that experience under his belt. And then I gave the Rangers Beckham Edwards, Sarnia Sting's best center. Matched his 45 points from his rookie season, and he's going to end up going to the Rangers. We'll get into round 3 here. I've got a few more rounds here. Lars Steiner, this was a player who I had in my top 10 in the preseason. He falls to Calgary in round 3. He really regressed. He had 60 points last year, and he only had 55 this year. So he took a step back as far as his development goes, and that's why he's Steiner's at the top of the 3rd round. But I think we'll see how he does. I'm kind of curious to see what happens with him. But yeah, Lars Steiner, and then Viggo Sorensen. He's a Division II player in Sweden. Boro Vetleta. He played on Vaxjo on a loan, so we'll see how he develops. He did well as far as points go, but he played weaker competition in Vetlanda HC. I'm kind of curious to see how he does against tougher competition. Nils Bartholdson, a preseason 1st-round pick. I have him falling in the early portion of the 3rd round. We'll see how he does. Jean-Christophe Lemieux is a player I really like. I know the size isn't there for a 1st-round pick. I could see him coming off the board in the 3rd round. And then Axel Elofsson, I think Toronto drafts him, top defenseman from Sweden. Grimes, I really like Matthew Grimes. Sioux Falls Stampede won the USHL. They dethroned the defending champions. Anytime you can get a player on the defending champions, you got to pull the trigger, and he's going to go to Boston College this fall. Jonas Wu, he's going to go to Arizona State, but Jonas Wu, he's from Winnipeg, so the Jets may roll the dice in the hometown guy. He's the younger brother of Jet Wu, who was drafted by the Minnesota Wild in 2020. Jan Liris was my top goalie on the board. He checked off 9 out of 10 boxes. Despite struggling in the playoffs, he looked really good. I do think he's got to add some muscle. 6'3" is good height, 162. Got to add a little bit of muscle. I think if he does that, he will be a stud. But it just comes down to whether or not he adds that muscle. The Ottawa does need a goalie, though, for the future. The Blues also could end up taking a goalie for the future. And Michael Orslak, he had a really good regular season. I would have liked to see him do more in the playoffs, though. But he checked off 8 out of 10 boxes. And then Georgios Pantelis, this is the player I gave your Avalanche, William.
Sir.
They only have 4 defensemen under contract, and Pantelis, 6'2", 211 pounds. He had 37 points, 90 shots on goal, 50 penalty minutes, +19 ± ratio. Some Some have him in the second round. I did not realize he's a top-line guy until I went back and looked at the tape. But a lot of people do have him in the second round. He might go in the second round, but Pantelis, he can play. He's a good two-way defenseman. I think he's more of a defensive defenseman than an offensive defenseman, but still, he showed he could be the guy with Brandon Wheat Kings this year. That feels like a player Colorado could use with them only having 4 defensemen under contract. And there wouldn't be much of a development curve since he'd be going back to Brandon Wheat Kings, currently not enrolled in a college yet. So, yeah. What do you think of Pantelis?
Where are we at?
Colorado at 73. I went with Pantelis, 6'2", 211-pound defenseman.
Yeah, and picking a defenseman, I mean, I feel that's a good move. He's definitely has good size, especially since he's broke that 200-pound mark, I mean, how old is this kid?
18.
Oh, yeah, no, that's very good, man, because he's still got some room to grow. He's going to be a big boy.
Yeah.
I mean, usually players coming into college aren't, they're definitely usually below the 200 mark there, and just everything. So no, I mean, having the awareness and having that IQ, I mean, it just really, really speaks, and maybe the Avalanche can, do something with this, now that they actually have a few picks, going into this, and it'll definitely be interesting.
Yeah, I agree. They've got a chance to do something.
Yeah.
Right now, Avalanche are number 2 on ESPN's early power rankings for next year, behind Carolina, who won the Stanley Cup. Dallas is 3rd. I do think that's probably the top 3 for now. I agree with that order, but we'll see what happens in the offseason. Ryder Cali goes to the Blues. I want to see what Ryder Cali does on at college level, because I think he is going to go to a college team, but he's going to go to Providence. I'm kind of curious to see what he does there. I know he won 225 faceoffs, but the 36 points are a little disappointing. I'm hoping he can improve that at Providence. If he can't, then you are probably looking at a guy who's going to play in the 3rd or 4th line. Play a defensive role as a grinder in the NHL versus a goal-scoring role. Well, we'll see what he does. Noah Kosick, Seattle Thunderbirds left winger, he had 54 points this past season, 5 points in 5 games during the WHL playoffs. Oh, Liam Lefebvre is going to go to Vermont this fall, the Chicoutimi Saguenay's right winger. And then I gave Vancouver a goalie. They get their goalie for the future. One of my sleepers is Alexei Vlasov. I know he's undersized, but the 80 points are what sold me on this guy. He reminds me of Kucherov, but he has the versatility to play other winger role, which, while Kucherov's a pure right winger, this guy Vlasov does remind me of Kucherov. So we'll see what he does. I know the size isn't great, but 80 points, he does remind, in his rookie season, he does remind me of Kucherov. And then I gave the LA Kings Julian Mays, Calgary Hitman. He was the Everett Silvertips first-round pick, traded to Calgary, had 78 points this year, so really high on him. The Rangers are going to get Thomas Rosso, 52 points. Gleb Pulyachov is considered the top Russian in the entire draft. He's the top Russian winger. I have him in the late 3rd, but I do think he'll get picked. Alessandro Diorio, when Beckham Edwards was injured, he did get minutes and reps in the top line. He might be starting as captain next fall with Beckham Edwards heading to Notre Dame. Edmonton goes with Jonas Iverson. He's going to play college at St. Cloud State after one more season in the Western Hockey League next year. 6'3", 193, good size. You want to see the points and shots on goal go up next year before he heads into college, but that's not the worst pick Edmonton could make at this point. So we'll see what the Oilers do with this player, how he develops. And then Toronto goes with Harrison Butker. This was the pick the Flyers traded away to Toronto in the Joseph Woll trade that Ron discussed at the top of the show. I mean, they've got to get another guy they can put in their possible. Butker's going to Denver. Denver is the defending champion in college hockey. They should be able to fix his weaknesses. Hafele was a player I saw in person. He can play all three forward roles. He was on the top line at the beginning of the year, but they moved him down to the second line at the USHL Fall Classic, and he just didn't move the needle at that tournament that I saw in person. I mean, so we'll see what he does at Arizona State this fall, because that will be a transition where he's going to college, Arizona State, from Green Bay to Arizona State. That will be a transition for him.
Yeah.
So we'll see what he does. And his size deal, the versatility is what makes up for his lack of size, but we'll see what he does, because he's got experience in the top line, but at the same token, when I saw him in person, he didn't move the needle, and that's usually an indicator of what's to come. If a player doesn't move the needle when you scout them in person, that's usually an indicator. Not always, but usually is an indicator of what is to come. And then Raiden Klimke, 6'0", 187. He was Saskatoon's number one defenseman. Now, that size might work in the CHL. It's not going to work in the NHL or the AHL. Nathan Brisson was the Scholastic Player of the Year this past season. 72 points in last year, and this year he had 64 points, but really good player. And then my sleeper of this draft is Owen King of the Greater Sudbury Cubs. This is the player I told you about that played last year on the Blind River Beavers.
Yeah.
We spoke about earlier in the week. But yeah, 75 points on the Blind River Beavers, 74 points on the Greater Sudbury Cubs this season. I'm not sure why the Blind River Beavers discarded Owen King, but yeah, this guy, I had him in the second round of my midseason mock on Draft Prospect Hockey. I have him in the third round now, but this is a guy a lot of people are sleeping on. This guy could end up falling in the seventh round and end up being a massive steal for someone, because Owen King, I just think he's too consistent to ignore at this point in the draft, but he could fall. We'll see where he ends up. Oliver Grohl, I like Grohl, but he went undrafted last year. He was a top-line guy last year, went undrafted. And then Dylan Rossi, he was a first-round pick by the St. John's Sea Dogs. Good versatility. We'll see how he develops. Philip Veilleux led the he had 96 points. He led the Fouriers in points. So we'll see how he develops. And then Nicholas Aram Olsen, good player from Sweden, played on the power play as well as the penalty killing unit. Final player in the top 32 of the Hockey News. And then Columbus, I went with a surprise pick, Mikhail Milosrdny. His name's very hard to pronounce, but massive size at 6'6", 214. If he can fix his offense, he will be a stud, but he's also a long-term project. But he has experience on the top line, which does help. But he's also a long-term project. Seems like a player Columbus would roll the dice on. Vegas, I decided to give them a younger goalie. I don't know if there's a number one defenseman for Vegas to snatch up at this point. It's just hard to get one outside of the first two rounds. And this late in the draft, I think they're better off finding a long-term goalie to develop. I don't know if I think Carter Hart will be extended, but Carter Hart dominated against Colorado, and then he laid an egg against Carolina. And Aiden Hill was the guy who won them the cup in 2023. He's now the backup. I do think they need to draft someone, get someone in their system. They don't have to rush them up, but, this guy, he's not going to take the NCAA route, so you can bring him up. And then the Utah Mammoth, we gave them Galvis, 5'10", 168. He's 20 years old, but he's the best 20-year-old skater in the draft. I only have the first 5 rounds of write-ups done, and then I'm just going to scroll through my picks for round 6 and 7. But yeah, Ben McBeef is probably the last first-line player in the draft, and then I had a run on goalies. Since both Florida starter and backup goalies are UFAs, I did double dip at goalie with Florida. Nicholas Kakko has struggled in the NHL. He's done well in the AHL with Coachella Valley. He struggled in the NHL, so I went Jack Parsons for Providence. And then Igor Rybkin, who I had in the third round, fell to Calgary in round 4. Dustin Wolf is locked up to a 7-year contract. He was a Rookie of the Year finalist last year. I don't think Dustin Wolf needs to be replaced. I'm saying bring someone in that you can develop into a future backup. Hextall stays in Ohio. And then Mutrin, I like Mutrin, but I think there are some things he's got to work on. But he has first-round size. So I don't know if he's a guy who has the top-line ability, but he has first-round size. Let's see what he does at Boston College. And then Victor Plante, he got a heck of an endorsement from his brother. Max Plante won the Hobie Baker at college hockey this year, and he basically said Max basically said Victor's better.
Yeah, well, little brothers are like that. I've seen quite a few that grew up to be a lot bigger than their big brother because of, what they had going on. They were usually, and they had to be so tough, because they had their big brother beating up on them.
Yeah,
so,
and it's true. The competitive nature of the brothers with Nick Bosa, and Nick Bosa was the younger brother of Joey Bosa. But yeah, Derek Plante, he got traded from the Buffalo Sabres to the Dallas Stars the year the Stars beat the Sabres in the Cup final. And Derek Plante's kids are Max and Victor Plante. So Victor Plante, 5'10", 156. I do think he's got to get bigger, but yeah, I mean, that averages out to it. He could be a third-line winger in the AHL, second-line left winger in the NHL. It just depends how he develops. I've seen this guy mocked to Dallas, but he's going to go to Minnesota Duluth to play with his brother in the fall. Adam Golger's a guy I like from Slovakia. He really stepped up. I don't think he's a number 1 defenseman, but I think he can be a second-line defenseman if you develop him. And then Nikita Sherbakov, another guy that looks like a second-line defenseman. But yes, he's not a great shooter. He's got to clean that up in Russia. Simon Ignatius, this is a player, 6'3", 201, played against men in Switzerland. So he's born in Memphis, Tennessee, but he has dual citizenship in Lithuania and North America, but he ends up playing hockey overseas in Switzerland. I've seen this guy as high as the late first round, and the top of this 4th round at 105, I think, is the latest he'd fall, but Ignatius is a guy to keep an eye on. He could be one of the first guys picked next Saturday during the rounds 2 through 7 of the draft if he's not picked in round 1 next Friday. Shrenko, this guy was the second best player in Slovakia behind Adam Nemec in the preseason, and Shrenko led his team to a championship, which is something Adam Goljek didn't do, but Adam Goljek, 6'3", 194, Shrenko's only 5'11", 170, even though he interviewed really well. I think that does hurt him. Him not being able to go from second line to first line, and hit him at that size, I think that does hurt him a little bit. I do think he'll get picked by this point in the 4th round, but yeah, his dad's actually the GM of HK Nitro, the team he plays for, which is pretty crazy. His dad's the GM of the team. Yeah, and then the Devils, they get Eddie Doyle. I don't think he's as good as Carlos Hendel, who I had a first-round grade on last year out of Germany, but Eddie Doyle, 6'3", 193, good size, could develop into a second-line defenseman. Ryan Brown is a guy I like. First-round pick by Sarniers with the London Knights this season. Blake Zielinski, this guy is freaking fast. I mean, this guy, I basically called him Mr. Steal Your Hockey Puck. You got Mr. Steal Your Girl, and then you got Mr. Steal Your Hockey Puck, which is what the nickname I gave Blake Zielinski when watching his tape, because he was freaking fast. It was crazy how fast he was on tape. And yeah, I do think he's a guy who could be. I think he could be a really good second-line center on the right team in 5 years from now. He's very good off the rush. He's going to go to Providence this fall, and I think he's going to continue to have success in the Developmental league to develop, and this guy could be Swayman's backup. But Leo Henriquez, some have him in the 3rd round. He checked off 8 out of 10 boxes. He's still too low on some shots. He gets beat by high shots in the upper corners. He's got to make more saves with his blocker pad, stop being dependent on his glove. His nickname, though, is the Mad Scientist. I mean, I love that nickname, the Mad Scientist. It's a great nickname. I wish there was a player in the NFL draft that was nicknamed the Mad Scientist, but that is an awesome nickname.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a great nickname. I can't get over it. And then this is the sleeper I texted William about, Plummins, 6'3", 203, HK Zemgale. He played in Latvia. Latvia doesn't have a lot of NHL draft prospects. I know Slovakia does, but, you know, this was the 3rd goalie that checked off all 10 boxes. But the problem is he only played 16 games. That is not enough of a sample size. As much as I'd like to move him up, 16 games is not much of a sample size for scouts. And yes, it's great that he checked off all 10 boxes, but we'll only have a 16-game sample size. I do think that pushes him down a little bit. But
it does.
Plummins could be a steal in this draft.
You know, I'm sure so many GMs want to see at least, you know, more than that, you know, to have an idea of what's happening with the player. So and seeing if they can develop him. But, you know, you say checking off 10 boxes, you know, that's kind of one of those things. Maybe a GM will take a chance on him. You know, I mean, even with the limited size, maybe he'll intrigue someone, you know.
Sample size isn't big enough, but at the same token, outside of the top 2 goalies in this draft, he's the only guy that checked off every box. So maybe the sample size won't matter. Maybe the traits on tape are enough for him to succeed. We'll find out.
Yeah, for sure. You know, and like I said, man, it just comes down to that. Everybody's got their guy when it comes to a draft, you know, at a certain position or something. Everyone has their guy, and maybe he'll end up being somebody's guy.
Yep. And then Adam Valentini, preseason 1st round pick, had a decent freshman year at Michigan. Not a great year, but, you know, his favorite player is Wyatt Johnson. He did get to train with Dallas, so maybe they do take Valentini. Maybe that's a guy the Stars consider 59, but I some have him in the 3rd round. I think he'll fall to the 4th round. Oliver Strostrom's undersized, but he does have a ceiling to develop into a 2nd line. And yeah, I mean, this guy, he does need some work. I feel like another guy I like is Croskery. Croskery's going to Boston College, which is a great hockey school. Winnipeg, they draft a goalie. They get a goalie from the Czech Republic here. He really did well in a lot of games. 35 saves in a tournament game for the Czech Republic. Rudolph Burst Collins is a guy that Lumberjacks took in the 1st round of the USHL draft. He really stepped up after Tynan Lawrence left. And then Mikey Burchild, this is a guy Rod interviewed. He had a preseason 1st round grade, former 1st overall pick in the USHL draft, and he was the de facto challenger to Gavin McKenna leading up to the 24 NHL draft a few years ago. But, you know, he slipped. Now he's outside the top 100. I think a team like Nashville at 117, they roll the dice on him. We'll see what happens. And the Blackhawks, I gave them Simon Katalicki. This is a player from Finland. I got to see his interview, but he was born in the Czech Republic, and one person called him the best skater in the Czech Republic since Jaromír Jágr, which is a heck of a endorsement. 6'4", 198. Bruno Osmanis was a guy that had a 2nd round grade in the preseason. I think this is a good spot for him. I mean, Fabian Lysell hasn't lived up to the hype as Boston's 1st round pick. There's still time for Lysell to turn it around, but not much time. I mean, it's year 5 already for him, and we haven't seen Lysell was like a top 15 player in 2021, and he hasn't really lived up to the hype. Backup goalie. Reason I'm going goalie is your rookie goalie Jesper Wallstedt took the starting job from Philippe Gustafsson. Gustafsson can play out his contract, and then you can get a younger backup on a rookie deal. I do like Lascelles. He's going to go to Nebraska Omaha this fall, and then Alan Schneckmov, KHL debut. He's going to go. He's going to be a. He can play both winger roles. Charlie Morrison, Quebec Remparts defenseman, and he's going to head to Connecticut this fall. Sabres take my final 4th round goalie, Vijo Tam, and this is where we go from goalies that check off 8 out of 10 boxes to 7 out of 10. So we start to see another drop off in terms of tier of goalies, and then you got Max Isaacson from Vaxjo, and then I gave Tyus Sparks to the Avalanche. He's the son of former Boise State quarterback Nate Sparks, who played in the CFL. So, yeah.
Got some athletes in that family, eh?
Yep.
Cool, man. I like those kind of things because all that pushing each other, and relatives and stuff that play that high, that ends up with the football IQ or hockey IQ or just sports IQ of whatever sport they're playing. I meet so many of the players.
McFadden and Bilecki. Bilecki was on the Kitchener Rangers team that won the OHL championship. I think he's mainly a third-line defenseman. I've got one more round of write-ups, and then I will scroll through. I do have every pick posted, but I will scroll through the last 2 rounds quickly since I don't have a write-up on the last 2 rounds of players.
Hey, Chris.
Sokolov. What's up?
I was going to say before you got to that, there was a question in the chat room about who do you think the Predators will take at 10, but go ahead, man.
I saw this. Tynan Lawrence. Tynan Lawrence is who I have the Predators taking at 10. Pred Talk. Appreciate the question. Are there any teams better at drafting in the middle late round than players of the rest of the teams? It just depends on what we see next week, Aaron. But yeah, that's another good question. I agree. There are certain teams that are better at drafting the middle rounds, late rounds. I think it just comes down to who you trust in the draft. And Maxim Sokolovsky's not going to get past this spot in round 5. He might go earlier than this. 6'8", 235. Third-line defenseman on the London Knights, but he has the ability to be a second-line, first-line penalty killer. And, he is... He's a really good penalty killer at 6'8", 235. Had 8 points in limited action as a rookie, but he has got exceptional penalty killing, so he could get pushed up in the second round. Vanderberg, 25 goals, 25 assists for Utah. Vilho Vaihanalto is interesting because he played either winger role in Finland. Dravecki is another player I like. Brady Wasselin was a preseason top 10 pick. He's dropped all the way down to round 5. Lemire is a guy I like. He could be a really good role player on the right team. Jakub Flores, 6'3", 194. Jonas Kemp. There's a guy that's the son of a former Boston College quarterback in this draft, too. I'm trying to find out who that player is. I'll try to figure out. It may be, but I do have a goalie run in round 5. I'm just trying to figure out, because I know there's a player who was the son of a former Boston College quarterback. That's what I'm trying to figure out. I don't think we skipped that write-up. I'm just trying to figure out, okay, who is that player that meets that benchmark, meets that criteria? That's kind of what I'm curious about. And I'll go back, I'll revisit some of these picks here, but I'm just trying to remember at the top of my head. There was a player that was the son of a former Boston College quarterback, and I can't remember who it was at the top of my head. So that's what I'm trying to figure out here. That's what I'm trying to figure out. I'm not trying to skip any of these picks. It may have been a third-round pick. Let me look here on... because I know there was a player. I know there was a player that was a former... there was a player who was a former, he was the son of a former Boston College quarterback. I'm just not sure who it was, because there was a player who was the son of a former Boston College quarterback. I'm just trying to think who it was, because I remember the write-up. I remember bringing up the fact that this player was a son of a former quarterback. Just trying to think exactly who it was. It may have been a second-round player.
Yeah.
I know we mentioned the one son, Sparks, in Colorado, but I know there was another player who was the son of a former Boston College quarterback. I just don't remember.
Eddie and Casey Mutrin.
May have been was it Casey Mutrin,
Yeah.
Scott Mutrin? Yeah, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
Was Mutrin.
Yeah, Teddy and Casey, their father is a Scott, standout quarterback for the Boston Eagles. I remember that from the last.
Because he lost, he beat out Hasselbeck for the starting job, and then Hasselbeck took the job from him.
Right.
At Boston College, and then he went to the Patriots as a fourth-string QB, and then he was the Amsterdam Admirals QB as well in Germany.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you for. I forgot it was Scott Mutrin, but yeah, that's why. But thank you for bringing that up, because yeah,
for sure. Hey Chris, I'm gonna duck out of here. Get myself some breakfast.
All right, I will quickly read through round 7. Hagloff was the captain of the Moto hockey team, 6'3", 214. Reem Mullen, Kuhn. I'm just reading through some picks. I appreciate you stopping by, William. Go get your breakfast.
Yes, sir. Follow us on Under the Bleachers. It'll be coming back real soon, August.
It'll be coming back in August. Draft Utopia Season 16 will premiere August 1st. And next Saturday, NHL Draft rounds 2 through 7. We will be here on the call, going through all the picks as they are announced live. If the draft results page isn't updated, we can use NHL.com just to see who gets picked, where they get picked. But yes, William's going to sign off, and then I will quickly read through the last 2 rounds of picks. I do not have write-ups for these final 2 rounds, so I'm just going to scroll through rounds 6 and 7 while William breakfast. Take it easy, William.
All right. Late, everyone. See you later.
That was William Yanish of Under the Bleachers. He is going to get some food. I might do the same after I get through these last 2 rounds. Probably shouldn't. I probably should focus on some work. But yeah, I don't have the write-ups up for round 6 and 7 yet, because I knew I wasn't going to get all this done and the draft simulator done. So I went with these are the players I tentatively have, because I could find pictures of these players to put on our draft simulator. But this is what I've got for round 6 at the moment. I do have a run of Guelph Storm players. Roman LeMan, Colin Fitzgerald. Let's try that. Yep. So, Arseny Ilyin, he was a preseason first-round pick. He drops to Minnesota. Joe Aginla. Oiva Juntunen, left winger from Kuku, 6'1", 201 pounds. But yes, forgot the B in Red Deer Rebels. But yeah, Jiri Kamas is who I have in round 6. And then Alex Kotsev, Flint Firebirds right winger. And then Carter Casey, I have him. Carolina losing Frederick Anderson. They're going to want another goalie in their prospect pool. I think Carter Casey could be a pick in the late rounds. And then, shit, I forgot to change the last round from round 6 to round 7. Let me do that right now, guys. Give me a second to change that. Forgot to do that. And then I'll be getting the write-ups up after the show. As soon as the show ends, I'll be getting the last 2 rounds of write-ups up. Logan Stewart, AJ Francisco, Arturi Ernonen. This says Brampton. Nathan, hold on. Brampton Steelheads. Let's try that. I think it was Brampton was the team Porter Martone played for last year. Yep. So Nathan Amidovsky to the Red Wings. Yuri Samovori. Helsingfors IFK is where Miro played, Miro Heiskanen. There are 3 players from Helsingfors that are 7th round picks, but Helsingfors was where Miro played in Finland. Leo Tuva. Salandra. The Blackhawks, I've got them taking John Samuel Dagenhalt. I thought he had a good season. Step Attack was my preseason number 2 goalie last year. I still think he gets picked as an overager in round 7. Dylan Dean. Andre Mondu of the Kingston Frontenacs. Jackson Harter. Adam Levick. Caden Harvey, Donal Shaklikov, Harris Pantagretich, Alexander Talifer, Cameron Shartland, Pavel Martineau. I'm gonna edit that one. I in Sioux City. I forgot the I in Sioux City. And then Ivan Parrott from CSKA Moscow. Nikita Ocherev from Quebec. He's Russian as well. Morgan Anterberg for the Bruins. Bode Layan, the Tri-City Storm with the Wild 7th round pick. Cameron Allard of the Brandon Wheat Kings heads to Dallas. Riley Steen heads to Winnipeg. Jacob Zoo heads to Montreal. Brady Murdane heads to Colorado. Cole Termino. And then Daniel Walters from Montreal is my Mr. Irrelevant at 223. So that's the draft. That's all 7 rounds. I don't have the write-ups for round 6 and 7 because I was working on the draft simulator. That is currently at 160 players, and I will post a link to that in the description. In fact, if you guys want me to zoom out, I can show you the updates to that. Oliver Savanto, that's true. Teams are missing, I believe people are missing scouting Oliver because Oliver Savanto played on the first line in the international tournaments. He didn't play on the first line in Finland because teams want to ease their guys in, like you mentioned, Anthony. But I think Florida at 9 is his floor. I think Montreal at 27 is the 28 is the furthest he'd fall. But I think Florida at 9 is the highest he'd get picked. Montreal's probably the lowest he'd get picked, but I think Savanto does go in the first round, and that's a great point, Anthony, about how players in Finland and Sweden do not play on the top lines when they're young. That's a great point, Anthony. But yeah, I'll show you guys the simulator really quickly here because that will be what we're using next Saturday, and then I'm going to sign off. And yeah, but this is what we have. We have all of the picks in. I have to put 224 picks in because that's the only way the simulator will load all the players. But yes, you can go online. You can check that out. I will be adding more players to the simulator today and write-ups. And then, yeah, I'll be adding more players to the simulator today from the last 2 rounds of the draft. And, yeah, I'll leave a link to that in the description. So, yeah, you guys can check that out. I'll be back next week. I'll be back next week with Ron on Friday, and then William and I on Saturday will break down rounds 2 through 7 of the NHL draft. I have a lot of work I still got to do with both the mock draft and the simulator. So, yeah, we'll see you guys later. Have a good one. Peace. So we'll be back next week. NBA Draft Monday, NBA Draft Tuesday, NBA Draft Wednesday. Thursday I'm off, and then Friday and Saturday I'm back to the grind. So, yeah.